Today, Kiwis vote with their wallet. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to today's post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian and indeed a New Zealand perspective. Now, the news from New Zealand is getting worse and worse. And it's worth reflecting, of course, that there's an election next year. The latest is from the Westpac Mcdermott Consumer Confidence Survey, which was released this last week. That particular Consumer Confidence Index summarises the net balance of optimistic and pessimistic responses to 5 questions: how households' financial situation have changed over the past year, whether now is a good time to buy a major household item, how households expect their financial situation to change over the coming year, and near and longer term prospects for the New Zealand economy as a whole. The first 2 of those questions are summarised in the Present Conditions Index, and the last 3 are summarised in the Expected Conditions Index. And by the way, an index number over 100 indicates that optimists outnumber pessimists, though the series may be above or below 100 on average. And the survey also includes questions on respondents' spending on entertainment and eating out, and what they would do with a $10,000 windfall. Survey interviews were conducted over the period 1 to the 14th of June, and the sample size was 1,559. And they found that confidence among New Zealand households has plummeted, dropping to its lowest levels since they began surveying consumers back in 1998. The Consumer Confidence Index fell 13 points in the June quarter to a level of 78.7. Confidence has only come close to those sorts of lows twice before. First during the recession of the early 1990s, and then again during the global financial crisis of 2008 and 9. Large numbers of households said that their financial position has deteriorated in recent months, and many expect that it will continue to weaken over the coming year. That's despite the introduction of policy measures to limit the pressure on living costs, such as the reduction in the fuel tax and halving of public transport charges. And it's not just their personal financial situation that's got households worried. Increasing numbers of New Zealanders also expect that economic conditions more generally will deteriorate over the next few years. Underlying this increasingly grim assessment of economic conditions, New Zealand is being buffeted by some powerful economic headwinds. Key among the challenges that households are grappling with has been the increase in the cost of living, with prices of all manner of consumer goods continuing to charge higher in recent months. There have been particularly large increases in the prices of household essentials, with food prices up nearly 7% over the past year, and petrol prices now running at over $3 per litre across the country. The pressure on household budgets has been compounded by the rise in interest rates. The Reserve Bank has been hiking the official cash rate at a rapid pace, and they've signalled that it is likely to rise substantially more over the coming months. For many households, the related rise in mortgage rates has already taken a sizable bite out of their disposable incomes, and of course there's more to come. In addition, around half of mortgages will come up for repricing over the coming year, and another 20% will come due within 2 years. In some cases, borrowers will face refixing at interest rates that are 2 to 3% higher than the rates they're currently paying. Adding to the concerns about the economic landscape, many households have seen the value of their assets falling in recent months. Nationwide, house prices have dropped by 6% since November. Similarly, the value of Kiwi saver balances and other financial assets have dropped sharply since the start of the year. The pressure on household finances and sharp fall in confidence reinforces the expectations for a downturn in household spending and economic growth more generally over the coming months. In fact, though, that is precisely what the RBNZ is trying to engineer. The recent sharp rises in the official cash rate have been aimed at dampening domestic demand in order to moderate the current strong domestic inflation pressures. However, there are some big questions about how quickly economic activity will slow and just how far the official cash rate will need to rise. The RBNZ's own projections show the cash rate rising to 3.9%, while financial markets have started to price in a chance that it could go as high as 4.5%. Westpac agrees that there's a substantial amount of work still to be done to bring inflation pressure back into check, but they say if there is a more abrupt slowdown in spending than the RBNZ anticipates, then it's likely that the increases in the cash rate will be more measured, and the pace and extent of the fall in consumer confidence certainly raises the risk of a sharper slowdown in demand. So consistent with that, they continue to forecast a peak in the cash rate of around 3.5%. Now normally, each quarter they dive into how confidence differs across various household groups and regions in the economy. But a particularly notable feature of this quarter's survey is just how uniform the drop in confidence has been. Confidence has fallen sharply across all age groups and income brackets. Confidence also is at low levels in every corner of the country. There's been a particularly sharp fall in regions like Southland, Auckland, Canterbury and Northland. There were two regions, Wellington and Gisborne Hawke's Bay, where they did see small increases in confidence this quarter, but that follows earlier sharp falls. And even in those regions, confidence remains very weak. So this broad-based weakness in consumer confidence highlights the extent and nature of the challenges households are grappling with. The pressure on household finances has not been limited to any group or region. And while economic conditions will vary across the country, all parts of the economy will be affected by the tightening in financial conditions now in train. And similarly, the related slowdown in economic activity that they're forecast is expected to be widespread. Now, it's worth just underscoring again that most Kiwi mortgage holders are on fixed rates at 2 years or less. And so they took out mortgages at rock bottom pandemic rates and have yet to be impacted by the aggressive monetary tightening cycle, which only began in September 2021. So financial stress will therefore soar later this year, once those fixed rate mortgage terms start to expire, and Kiwi borrowers are going to be forced to refinance to significantly higher, something like double actually, mortgage rates. So the way it's headed, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand will drive the nation into recession just in time for next year's general election. And given that the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, is already trending badly in the polls, this may be yet another nail in that coffin. But the point I want to make here is that there is a lag between the impact on consumers and rate rises. It's very hard to know whether the Reserve Bank of New Zealand is getting enough information quickly enough to be able to calibrate the amount of the rises. Or will they simply rise until something breaks? But meantime, Kiwis are putting their wallet firmly back in their pocket, and that, of course, in its own right, can be quite recessionary. I'm afraid that New Zealand and recession look likely to know each other very well. And bearing in mind that New Zealand is perhaps a few months ahead of Australia, maybe we should read from there across to here, because while the Reserve Bank of Australia has been slower to lift rates, they are expressing the same sort of thoughts as the New Zealand Governor, Adrian Orr, that inflation must be stamped out, even if something breaks in the process. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.